Well, my friends, right now we are facing an unprecedented emergency, an international emergency, and people everywhere are scrambling around. Some of them are kind of panic-stricken. There's a lot of anxiety, and people are looking for leaders. And I got the question from somebody in one of my groups, what do you do in situations like this when you are called upon for leadership? And so I thought I would shoot a quick video on this topic that is so crucial right now. So if you have people that are looking to you for leadership, to make good decisions in times of crisis, to make good decisions really for business, for your family, in a serious emergency, there are times when people will look to you for leadership. And this video is, first of all, how to be that leader, briefly, and more importantly, how to make the kind of decisions that count when it counts in, a serious crisis. So first of all, are you that guy right now? Do people look to you for leadership in times of emergency, and would you like them to? And there is, basically a simple rule behind this, which is somebody will lead any group of disorganized people in times of crisis. If we're hanging out with a big group of people on the sidewalk, could be strangers, could be people you know in a nightclub, and a bomb goes off, or there's an earthquake, or something happens where there's some urgency, at first people will be kind of in confusion, and nothing good happens during that state of confusion. Somebody is going to take leadership of that crowd, and what happens next crucially relies upon that, because once a leader emerges, then people are pulling in one direction, and now there's a possibility to resolve things in a much more positive way, much more quickly. And of course, if there's a police officer or somebody who's trained to lead in emergency situations, they're going to know what to do, and they will do it immediately because they've been trained. So they'll immediately take command. I'm a police officer. Everybody you do this, that, right? So if there is no police officer around, well then, somebody's got to step in, and somebody ought to be you if you're watching this video right now. So in a case like that, the first person amidst this confusion who says, okay, are there any doctors here? I need you to do this. You, call 911. You guys clear a path for an ambulance to get in. As soon as somebody is organizing, as soon as somebody who's clear-headed enough to take charge steps in, that catastrophe can begin to resolve, hopefully in a much more positive way. So, do people currently look to you for leadership in your family, in your community, in your business, in your social groups? Well, if they don't, it's because you're not. There's no specific quality that people are looking to go, well, I'm choosing this guy for leader. No, leaders are self-appointed most of the time. Like I said, unless there's a police officer or the CEO of the company naturally is leading. And if you are a CEO, and there's some good stuff here for decision making. If you are already, like I said, for some explicit reason, a leader, then I think you're going to enjoy this video. If you're not explicitly a leader, then you implicitly become leader simply by leading. That is a position that is self-appointed. It's an important thing to recognize. And if you think to yourself, well, who am I to self-appoint as the leader in any situation? I will tell you, we need you to lead, because most people won't. I'll tell you a quick story. Many years ago, probably 30 years ago, I was living in Los Angeles, and in the middle of the night, my phone rang. It was a girl from one of the apartments downstairs, and she said, oh, Alex, I think that a car is on fire outside my window in the parking lot. And I said, well, hold on a second. You think a car is on fire, or there is a car on fire? She said, no, there is a car on fire. I said, okay, great. Hang up, call 911, I'm on my way. And I popped open the door, and on my way downstairs, I smashed in the glass where there was a fire extinguisher in the hallway. I grabbed the fire extinguisher, ran downstairs, and there's a car on fire with a crowd of about maybe 10 or 15 people standing there watching. And so I push my way through this crowd of people, and I see that there is a gasoline-soaked rag stuffed somebody's removed the little gas cap and stuffed it into the little gas tank line there. My first thought was, holy shit, this thing could blow up, and I'm scared. I don't necessarily want to run towards a car that, at least in the movies, is about to blow up and kill me. But I realized that something needs to be done. If it's going to get done, it has to get done quickly. So I run towards the car. The bumper, the plastic bumper was melting where the rag was touching the side of the car and it was like zorching down, And so I took the fire extinguisher and I put out the fire. And I turn around and now there's maybe 20 people who are just standing there doing nothing. So I say, you, call the fire department, you, right? And I kind of take command of the situation. Well, the fire department arrives and I said to them, I ran up there and I put it out and I was afraid it was going to blow up and I was really scared because I thought I was kind of cool and I wanted the firemen to go, good job, citizen. But instead he kind of like went, cars don't really blow up like they do in the movies. And I was like, well, I didn't know that. I was actually scared. But I got zero credit for this, is the bottom line. And anyway, I went back to bed. And I guess maybe an hour later, I'm asleep and something wakes me up. And I realize what's woken me up is the smell of smoke. And I look out my window and I'm on the second floor and there are flames coming up past the height of my window. And I of course, immediately I suspect what must be going on here. So I dash out of my apartment. I run upstairs to the third floor because I happen to know that there's no fire extinguisher on the first floor hallway for whatever reason. I lived in a cheap building. And I smashed in the fire extinguisher there, grabbed the fire extinguisher, ran down the stairs, out the door. And now what's happened is, as we come to find out later, is the arsonist had taken a phone book, doused it in gasoline, lit it on fire, and threw it through the window of a convertible. Now the entire interior of the car and the roof of the car are just a raging inferno. And as I'm running towards the car, two things are true. One is there's now a crowd of about 40 people standing around that I have to actually push my way through to get to the emergency. Nobody's doing anything. And that's the crucial thing here. Nobody's doing anything. And that's why I say it's so crucial for men to recognize that there is a need for leaders and somebody's got to step up and do it, and you are somebody. So I push my way through this crowd. And as I do, my fears from the first scenario suddenly become vividly real as there's a sudden explosion, and the explosion is the windshield exploding from the heat. And so I kind of flinch back and my adrenaline's going, and I empty the fire extinguisher into the vehicle without a ton of effect. And then I yelled to somebody, you get that hose over there, you turn the water on from the spigot. It happened to be a hose sitting there, this parking lot in LA where I guess it's just that kind of neighborhood. And so we run over and we start hosing this thing off. The fire department arrives and they finish putting out the fire. And this time I actually get a little credit. They say to me, it's a good thing that you kept that fire cooled down with that water before we got here. It could have spread to the building. So I actually did finally get my little hero tap on the head. The point of this story, if there is any, is that somebody's going to lead. And the person that leads isn't going to be selected by committee, not by who's most popular. It's whoever steps in and does it. And so if you want to be considered a leader within your community, within your family, within your social network, lead. That's what it takes. Lead, step in, do it. Somebody has to. There's a big life lesson in that. Now, let's get to the agenda. I've got three important little distinctions that are really going to help you to make the wisest possible decisions in times of great uncertainty. And life is great uncertainty. Life is great uncertainty. So, the first one is, it's sort of obvious that you need to make the most rational decisions that you can based on the best information you can get. That's half. But the second half of that is, as you're making the most rational, best decision you can make, you must take into account your own personal cognitive biases. You need to take into account your own weaknesses, your own thought patterns. In other words, if you know that you're extremely optimistic, you've got to take that into account when making that. You can't expect good outcomes just because you're an optimist. You have to kind of get meta to yourself and then look at the problem and say, what if the way I think is not the right way to think about this? And if you can do that, consistently, you'll make consistently better decisions. It's really about knowing yourself, about knowing your own weaknesses and thought processes and biases. So, for example, right now in the world that I'm recording this in, half the people in the world think that Donald Trump is the second coming of Jesus Christ, and the other half think he is the devil. Who's right? It doesn't really matter. But recognizing that you probably hold one viewpoint or another when evaluating what kind of a thing this guy just did, you're going to have to take into account that you have a very strong bias, either positively or negatively, about the matter. And if you don't take that into account, you're going to make bad decisions. So know thyself, and consider that when considering the data in making a reasonable decision. That's step one. Step two, by the way, that might make the decision perfectly clear. When there's enough data, decisions are very clear. Like if you know that there's an option, you can either go left or right, and according to the map, if you go right, you're going to get where you're going, and if you go left, you won't. Well, there's no decision to be made. You do the thing that you know is right. But the problem is when you don't know whether you should go left or right, and there are conflicting sources, right? So that's when you're going to have to, like I said, make the most rational decision, and then after that sort of decision-making process, take into account your own biases and prejudices and make a better decision based on knowing the things that you might be likely to screw up. Okay, the second level of this is, it's such a good piece. It sounds kind of like, woo-woo. But take into account what the most loving action would be. Orient on what would be the most loving thing to do in this situation. This is a really dicey one, but when you consider it, sometimes decisions become so perfectly clear. Because frequently, for example, an emergency situation, where a doctor has to decide, we've got one ventilator and two people that need it. How do you decide who should get it? The sicker one, the one who's more likely to recover, the one who has children when the other one doesn't, or the one who is a child? I mean, these are really difficult decisions, and the most loving decision is often the best one. And that sometimes means making a decision that hurts a lot of people's feelings in the short run, but actually yields the better result for them. Here's just a simple, small example. If you have a friend who buys a new shirt, a very expensive shirt, a very fashionable shirt, a very cool shirt, but it looks like absolute shit on them, and they come out very proudly proclaiming and feeling just like fantastic that they have just purchased this very expensive shirt from this very fancy designer, but it looks like crap on them. Should you tell them that it looks like crap on them? Well, what's the most loving thing to do? What's the most loving thing to do? Is it better to make them feel good about the purchase now? Or is it better to show them that they have a friend that's willing to step up and tell them the truth when truth is a difficult thing to tell them? Typically, I say the more loving thing to do is not let them make a fool of themselves in the thing where they look ridiculous, if in fact they look ridiculous. Maybe it's a silly example, but I think that you understand that sometimes hurting somebody's feelings is the more loving thing to do. But short term, it doesn't feel that way until you evaluate it through this lens. It's a really, really powerful lens to view the world sometimes when the rational stuff gets in the way or doesn't yield a satisfactory answer for you. Now, the third piece is to not get paralyzed by the idea that you might do something wrong. The third piece is to recognize that you will do something wrong, that you will absolutely make some mistakes either by degree or by entirety. In other words, the decision that you set everyone on as a leader might be the exact wrong decision. You might be leading them in the wrong direction where shit gets bad. That might happen, okay? Or it could just be that you didn't get it all right. But the bottom line is it's never going to be entirely correct. You will make mistakes as a leader. And you've got to get good with that. You've got to get good with that in advance so the fear of it doesn't paralyze you. You have to recognize that mistakes are, as Henry Ford said, an opportunity to begin again more intelligently. But people won't see it that way. You may take some blame. That's okay. Leaders take blame, and they take it with responsibility. Sometimes you're the guy who made the bad call, and If you know that in advance, that might be a possibility, it won't blindside you, and you can say, that's right, I made that mistake. Here's what we learned. Now let's do this. People will follow you if you can acknowledge your mistakes, you can be good with your mistakes, and you can approach them in a way where it doesn't break you. It doesn't hurt your spirit. It doesn't rattle your confidence because you expected it. Because mistakes happen. Because that's what life is. When you're playing the game of life, you're going to fuck up a lot. And you're going to fuck up a lot as a follower as well as a leader. So you need to step up and not fear this, oh, I could be wrong thing. Be good at owning your mistakes. Do it rationally, do it manfully, and move on and become the wiser leader for those mistakes. That actually is the only way that you get good at this stuff and start making better and better decisions in whatever capacity you're called upon to make those decisions. So hope this video was helpful to you. If you like this kind of thing, I've got a program called How to Man that I think you might really dig on. I will link to that here so you can get more information if that's something that interests you. Please subscribe to the channel. That will allow me to continue making lots of videos like this one, and I will see you soon.